What's been happening to Facebook? I'm sure by now you might have seen that FB's share price is down by around 15% over the past month alone. You may have seen the discussion surrounding the whistleblower who's been bringing to light some information about the internal operations at Facebook that's of course caused a significant amount of external discussion. Or you might have seen the social media outage where many of the key tools from Facebook to Instagram to Messenger were all down over the past week. Whichever way you saw it, Facebook's had a significant past month that's been turbulent. There's been a lot of news and announcements for us to unpack. Today's video, we'll talk about all of these recent pieces of news. We'll talk and look at some of the high-level important numbers about FB's story, and then we'll talk about the future and where they may head from here. If you do enjoy the video, don't forget to hit the like button. Feel free to share it out. If you're new here, welcome. We make daily videos, so make sure you've subscribed and turn your bell notifications on. And so with that, who is Facebook? I'm sure in one form or another, everybody's familiar with Facebook. They started in a dorm room in Harvard and have now become the largest social media platform in the entire world. Their focus at their core is on facilitating connection globally. Of course, Facebook has continued to expand and they now own Facebook and Messenger. They have bought Instagram, which was one of the biggest acquisitions in the world at the time. They of course own WhatsApp, and they have Oculus, which gives them their footsteps into the VR and the broader metaverse space. We will talk about the metaverse later on in the video, so stay tuned for that because I know there's a lot of interest about that as a potential growth avenue. Of course, at its core, Facebook is an advertising-driven revenue model, though they do have other product ranges. Advertising makes up the vast majority of their current income. And so just taking a step back and having a bit of a think about the current context of the scale of Facebook. As we can see here are some of the interesting visuals that came out of their Q2 earnings discussion. Looking at the scale, Facebook has nearly 2 billion daily active users. When you think that that's nearly a third of the total global population, it's phenomenal. But we can get some more insights as well when we're looking at the breakdown of it. The US and Canada there is around 10% of those users, but you can see the rest of the world is making up nearly 600 million of them. And then Asia Pacific is around another 800 million. Of course, Facebook started and originated in that US and Canadian region, but has continued to expand outwards, and it is a truly global scale now. If you're looking at the revenue in the millions, we can see some interesting numbers through there. Of course, the key takeaways, Q1, Q2, Q3 in 2020, Q1 and 2, there was a significant pullback. Of course, into Q3, we started to see a bit of a resumption in trends and patterns. Before Q4, there was some real strength once again. A lot of that was due to the uncertainty in the broader economy. Advertisers weren't willing to spend as much as they waited to navigate the uncertainty and make sure they had enough capital to go through lockdowns, which could have been extended. But of course, we've started to see that pick up once again, and Q2 in 2021 was a really strong one. We'll talk about Q3 2021, which is earnings season that's up ahead, and what Facebook could be looking forward to. And then I just wanted to pull out the ARPU numbers as well. If you look at the average revenue per user, it's around $10 per user worldwide. But then if you look further into that and look at the US and Canadian numbers, you can see that they've got around $50 per user in US and Canada. Of course, that speaks to the fact that in a lot of the developing and emerging countries, their ARPU is significantly lower. But what it does mean is that as Facebook continues to monetize their platforms and their user base over time, there is the ability, if they do this well, to continue to grow ARPU, which of course will eventually flow through to the bottom line as well. When you think about Facebook's suite of products, of course, they're monetizing Facebook at the moment with ads. Everyone's familiar with that and the business plugins that they have. But Instagram is only just starting on its monetization journey. And WhatsApp and Messenger aren't really monetized at all. So there is still runway ahead of them. And then, of course, there is that big question mark surrounding VR and Oculus and the opportunity that they have with that, particularly as they continue to invest heavier and heavier into that moving forward. We'd love to know your thoughts on it all, so drop in a comment below what you think about Facebook and where do you think the story heads from here after all of the news recently. And of course, just a reminder, I'm not a financial advisor. Nothing we discuss is financial advice. These videos are just a general discussion to be that starting spot for you to do your own research from. And so with all of that context, that leads us to the big question. Why has FB's share price been dropping? I guess first and foremost, particularly for many of the users and consumers of Facebook's tools and platforms around the world, everyone was familiar that over the past week, there was a big social media outage. Many people were having problems accessing some of the key apps and products, including Facebook, including Instagram, including WhatsApp. I wonder if you had those struggles as well. Let us know with a comment if you did. And so that was a key one. But more importantly than that, and really the big underlying concern, was to do with the whistleblower. So there was a whistleblower initially who'd leaked some internal documents to the Wall Street Journal, and there was a range of different journal articles that came out over the past. But then Frances Haugen came out recently with an explosive 60-minute interview. And the key contention of that was there were a few moments over time where Facebook had the decision to choose for the broader social good or for profits. And she stated that she believed that at those moments, Facebook chose to focus on profits and disregard individual users' safety. It's an interesting discussion, and of course there's the significant interview which you can watch if you want more of an insight into that. There's been a range of different hearings as well that have come out of that. So I would encourage you to have a read into it if this is a space that you're interested in. Of course, we know that Facebook is a company that over periods of time has had negative sentiment surrounding it. This whistleblower discussion has really amplified that negative sentiment in the short term. The share price fell off as a result. Facebook on the Nasdaq saw its share price fell off over the past week. And now the question is, what will this mean moving forward? A lot of the discussion centered around the algorithm and the content that was being chosen to be displayed. The fact that potentially more divisive or controversial content was being provided to users because it was driving engagement and ultimately providing more advertising revenue coming through to Facebook. But it's a really interesting discussion. It's one that's still continuing to evolve. So we'll see what comes out of it moving forward. And so what did Mark Zuckerberg say about it all? First and foremost, he dismissed the allegations as deeply illogical. He stated that advertisers, which of course is FB's primary source of revenue, wouldn't want to be associated with angry or harmful content. And he also argued that federal regulation was necessary to address some of the concerns of the role of social media that are often mentioned, whether it's to do with the role in elections and politics or the impact on youth. So it was interesting to see him come out with that. Of course, there's going to be further discussions that flow out of this. There'll be more hearings. There'll be more inquests as well. So we'll wait to see how these play out and also the effect on Nasdaq FP's share price moving forward. And so as we can see here, FB's stock has been on a bit of a downwards trend over the past month. Over the past month, it's around 15% down. We can see it's still over 60% up year to date. It's been one of the true success stories. We know that many of the mega cap technology stocks have had real strength over the past period. We can see that Facebook is in and around that $330 mark. But we do know that there's a few headwinds as well. Not only is there the whistleblower discussion, not only was there the social media outage, but we know that the rising bond yields are starting to be another discussion in the narrative. We saw earlier this year when rising bond yields started to play havoc on the market, the technology stocks came off and entered correction territory. We're starting to see that discussion come to the forefront again. So Facebook has not been immune to that, as have many of the other mega cap technology names. So we'll see where they head. And so let's talk numbers. As we can see here, these numbers came out of FB's Q2 earnings. We know that Q3 earnings season is approaching now and we'll get the numbers at the back end of October. But as you can see here, total revenue for Facebook in the quarter was a colossal $29 billion. It's absolutely phenomenal. You can see year-on-year change was over 50%, which was really strong. But as we did discuss, there is going to be some cycling of some significant uplift in numbers in Q3 and Q4. And Facebook actually did provide that forecast that the upcoming numbers in Q3 and Q4 could struggle on a year-on-year comparable basis. There was a bit of a downwards pressure on the share price after the Q2 earnings, despite beating both on the top and the bottom line because of the near-term focus. However, this hasn't invalidated the long-term opportunity. Facebook is a company that looks like it's going to have real premium growth outperformance over the foreseeable future over the next couple of years. They're a company that can grow at double-digit growth rate, if not more than that, potentially in the 20% for the next few years. And so it's going to be interesting, particularly when you look at the fact that they're trading a trailing PE of around 24. When you think about the broader S&P, which is trading around 20 or 21 PE, that's not that expensive, particularly when considering the growth that's factored into it. And then on a forward PE basis, if they can continue this growth trajectory, looks like they're trading at around a forward PE of 20. So it's going to be really, really fascinating to see this play out. Of course, Facebook is a company that has naturally and inherently high margins, and as they continue to expand over time, they'll be able to improve their operating leverage. It's got quite a low cost of delivery. Of course, a lot of the focus at this stage is on growth, is on scale, is on expansion. And so a lot of the current income is going towards that. However, it will be fascinating to see as they continue to improve their margins over time, what that looks like. They beat on EPS for their Q2 earnings, so investors will be looking at their Q3 numbers up ahead. And so I know there's been a lot of discussions about the metaverse. Mark Zuckerberg, the Facebook CEO, spoke about the metaverse in his previous earnings call. You might be wondering, what is the metaverse? So the metaverse is a virtual space within the digital environments, such as online games, social media, and VR, and it's really a convergence of these technologies, and this will only pick up pace as these technologies improve over time and as the adoption continues to grow. We know that Facebook was just a little bit too late to miss out on controlling the smartphone. If you look at how Apple's really controlled that ecosystem there, Facebook wants to be able to develop and continue to drive its own destiny, and they've identified the metaverse as the next natural evolution of the internet. So of course, they're really investing heavily into that. We know that they've acquired Oculus, and this is a real growth engine for them that they're focusing on. But this is an area that they foresee as being the next natural progression for the internet as it continues to grow. What's interesting about the metaverse and VR itself is that it helps you to provide a sense of presence. It's like you're really there, and at its core, it really helps to facilitate connection, which of course is what Facebook's about. Who knows in the future, maybe we might be connecting through the metaverse and going to view art galleries with NFTs together with our friends. We might go and watch esports together in domains online in the metaverse. Maybe we're playing video games online within the metaverse. All of this can be contained within there, and Facebook are hoping that they're able to help to facilitate that as one of the leading companies in the space. And so then I guess the question is, where to next for Facebook? Of course, first and foremost on the calendar is their Q3 earnings. We know that megacap technology names have had a bit of a tendency over this past period to have a bit of strength in the lead up towards their Q3 earnings. Of course, they're judged at quite a high bar now, so it'll be interesting to see whether they can live up to that. But all eyes will be on Q3 earnings, not just for FB's share price, but of course the broader megacap technology sector. We know that regulation in the big tech sector will continue to play out, so we'll see any of that discussion that continues to flow through. And this expansion and investment into the new digital world is going to become more and more important, particularly as Facebook have identified this as a key growth leader. And finally, underpinning Facebook as its share price is that public perception is important. Over the past period, it's had quite a divergence in public perception. So it'll be interesting to see, particularly on the back of this whistleblower contentious debate, whether they're able to fight back against it and whether they're able to re-establish themselves as a company that's helping to facilitate this connection and really doing great things for the world. It's a fascinating period. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button. Feel free to share it out. As mentioned, we make daily videos, so if you're new here, make sure you've subscribed and turn your bell notifications on. We've interviewed a range of different CEOs on the channel, so we'll leave links to those up above that you can check out after this one. Thank you so much for joining us. It's always a pleasure. For now, stay well and happy investing.